All right, so this week for Training Tuesday, we're going to be talking about a new change order notice form that was just posted late last week. Emergency extension hearings are now going to be scheduled on Wednesdays, right before the sole source hearings, just to kind of make things more consistent and easier to schedule. We came across an issue from the system in BidBuy that mandatory questions in the line items tab is not allowing the vendors to answer those mandatory questions. So we're going to do a quick dive into that and talk about that. Our weekly resource highlight, a small business set aside program documents. So let me kind of take a step back and apologize for last week. We got about 10, 12 minutes into the call and I started having WebEx issues and it would kick me off and put me back in, and then I'd try to get back on and it would kick me off. So I apologize for those technical difficulties from last week. So we're going to circle back and hit those small purchase documents for our weekly resource highlight. A quick reminder that fiscal year end is right around the corner. Our fun fact of the day, which I'm actually going to steal from last week because I liked it so much, and we're going to use it for this week. And then our BidBuy activity this week will be a contract change order. Okay, so first up, our new form alert. We have a brand new change order notice form. So this new form is going to provide consistency across agencies and SPOs while ensuring compliance with the procurement code and criminal code. So as many of you know, a change order, and this is actually what I have here is we're going to go out and take a look at the change order notice form, but I actually pulled this directly from the form because it provides some really invaluable information on what is a change order. So according to admin code 1.1525H requires notice of renegotiated contracts and change orders that increase the cost of a contract by more than $10,000 or the time of completion by a total of 30 days or more to be posted into BidBuy for 14 days. So it needs to be one or the other. It could be either one, and that meets the definition of a change order. Now, that's not to be confused with an amendment, because with BidBuy, you do all of these different things. You can do a change order or an amendment via change order. So that what BidBuy calls a change order, it's easy to kind of get confused between the two. So we call them a contract change order if it's adding more than $10,000 or adding more than 30 days. You could do a amendment. Maybe you're adding less than $10,000, less than 30 days. It still requires SPO approval, but that's not a contract change order. That's a amendment, but within BidBuy, it's done via change order. So very clear, right? Oh, I know it can be confusing. So if you ever have any questions on what is a change order or what is an amendment, you can always reach out to your SPO, your APO, and we'll get those questions answered for you. So just as a note, a change order is always an amendment, but an amendment doesn't have to be a change order. And so also continuing, this change order notice provides detail as to why the change order is needed pursuant to section 33E9 of the criminal code, that the circumstances said to necessitate the change in performance were not reasonably foreseeable at the time the contract was signed, or the change is germane to the original contract. So, really what this form is going to do is it's going to allow you to, make sure that all the information that is needed to be posted is posted in an easy form to complete. So why don't we go out right now and take a look. So here's an example of that change order notice form. There's not a lot to it. It has some of the information that I just talked about at the very top of the form. You'll have a drop down for your agency. You can find your agency there. The title of the procurement, that's just that short description. And the BidBuy reference number is just the BidBuy number. You put in the detailed explanation for the change order, what's being changed. And then you select circumstances said to necessitate the change in performance were not reasonably foreseeable. And the change is germane to the original contract. Okay, so I'm seeing a lot of different issues here in terms of a few of you saying that you can't see the form, a few people say you can't hear me, or I'm breaking up. Let's see, I thought I was sharing my, looks like I'm sharing my screen. So anything on my, yeah, then I see some people saying that they can see the form. Oh, we love to have those technical difficulties, don't we? Let's see. Go back and try to share again. Maybe it just needed to refresh or something. All right, so I'm resharing my screen. All right, now it looks like we can. Okay, great. Sorry about that. We've been dealing with some WebEx issues this week as well as last week. That sounds like there was a little bug there. So here is the form. You have the drop down for your agency. You know, we have the information at the very top that we just went over. And in terms of, you know, you have your drop down for your agency, the title of the procurement, which is just that short description. The bid by reference number, of course, would be the bid by number. You put in the explanation for the change order, and then you would select the circumstances necessitate the change were not reasonably foreseeable at the time the contract was signed, and the change is germane to the original contract as signed. Okay, so and I appreciate this. My looks like I had to download a new version of WebEx to get this to work. So yeah, WebEx did a new update just in the last couple days, so that potentially could be having some issues as well. So really, you know, in the past, different SPOs could potentially do things, and agencies could do potentially things slightly different. You know, whether it was just a Word document that had all this information, or if it was in the comment that had this information. There was different agencies and different SPOs would do things differently. They were all in compliance with the code, procurement code and criminal code, in terms of posting that information. It was just that they were posting it in a different way. And so we got feedback from agencies and SPOs, hey, why don't we just have a quick and easy form that makes it really easy for everyone so everybody's on the same page. And that was completed and posted. Let's see, make sure I didn't miss any questions about this. Does this need to be completed and attached at the rec or at the bid? Now this would just be at the bid. And so if you go to all our job aids, and we'll walk through, actually, you know, I have it pulled up because that's going to be our activity today. In our job aids, it's going to walk you through that process. And so this is different than the change order justification form that is going to be at the requisition. Okay, so it is different. This is just the notice form. So if you see here, the change order justification form is at the requisition. That is the same as it always has been. In terms of following through the job aids, and that's the bid by activity we're going to do a little bit later, you just have this at the bid because this is showing to vendor and to the public, yes, we are publicly posting this change order pursuant to procurement code and criminal code. Okay. So now let's move on to emergency extension hearings. So we are going to, they're going to start occurring on Wednesday afternoons at 1 p.m., directly preceding the sole source hearings at 2 p.m. So any hearings that are currently scheduled will continue as planned. So nothing is going to change. It's just, you know, starting, you know, early May, depending on any of those that are already scheduled, we'll start having them scheduled for 1 p.m. on Wednesdays. And really all that is just, once again, to provide that consistency week to week. So they'll be done on Wednesdays at 1 o'clock. And then the sole source hearings are Wednesdays at 2 o'clock. So no other changes to that emergency extension hearing process are happening. It literally is just when they are scheduled, because past process and current process has been that they would just be scheduled here and there. There was no set time. And so we felt it'd be easier for all involved, for scheduling purposes, to have them right before the scheduled sole source hearings. Okay, so let's talk about this bid buy system issue we ran into. So yesterday we ran into an issue where a vendor couldn't answer a question, and it was because there were mandatory questions on the line items tab. So there were multiple line items, and then there were questions for each line item. And what we found is that BidBuy is not allowing vendors to answer those questions. So that's a hard stop for them, which means that they can't go in and submit their quote per usual. Of course, that's the big issue, and BidBuy team is working with Periscope to get that resolved. So just in case, and this may not be, may not affect your agency or anything that you currently have, but if you do have those, just take a look at any of your procurements, and if you are putting those questions in the line items tab, just know that they're going to run into an issue there. The header questions tab is working just the way it normally does. It's working correctly. You're going to use those header question tab for the RFPs, right? So for those of you that were on the RFP training, or you've looked at the video that's out on the training center, you'll actually put in a required question in that questions tab that says, do you acknowledge that this bid is for submitting technical proposals only, right? And then the other bid has a similar question that says, do you acknowledge that this bid is for submitting pricing only, and the technical response will be submitted on bid, and it references the other bid. So that process is working exactly the way it's supposed to. That's not the issue. So it is just in the line items tab if you have multiple line items, and then you're inserting questions, mandatory questions, I should say, mandatory questions in that questions sub tab. I know we're getting into the weeds a little bit, but if that doesn't affect anything that you have, then you don't need to worry about anything. But if you do have any of those procurements that have mandatory questions in the sub tab of the line items tab, just know that BidBuy team is working on it, and hopefully we'll have something resolved for you quickly. Okay, so we're starting to get to that time. We're at the end of April. Just to, not that you guys aren't aware, but just a quickly friendly reminder that the fiscal year end is right around the corner. So we'll start peppering these things in just to keep everybody, hopefully to have a good fiscal year end. So our weekly resource highlight, like I said earlier, last week I was cutting in and out, and we ended up having to cancel about 3/4 of the way through. And I had just started talking about our small business set aside program docs. And so I want to go out, and this will be our weekly resource highlight for this week: the small business set aside waiver and the small purchase with sole source conditions form. So if you go to the CPOGS website, you scroll down to the bottom, you have your BidBuy resources here. You have your procurement resources library, small business set aside, up program links at the very bottom. So you go to the procurement resources library, and we have our small business set aside program small purchase forms. And we have these two forms. We have the small business set aside program waiver request. And so I'll pull this up, but just know that this has not changed at all. This is the same document that you are used to seeing. Of course, I need to download it because I get that little thing. So this all looks the same to you, right? None of this has changed. But as our resource highlight, we just want to let you know where these documents are. So this is where, if you're going to do a waiver, so maybe you've gone out to small businesses and you received quotes that were potentially too high, or you receive no quotes. You go in and get a small business set aside waiver that needs to be in the procurement file. We have some potential options that are most of the options that occur. Most of what we see, honestly, is the small business vendors were solicited and no offers were received. That's one of the most popular ones. Product or service. The other one is a quote came in and it was just unreasonably too high, substantially greater than the estimated dollar amount established prior to the solicitation being sent out. If there are any others, you can select other and provide additional information in the box. If it is less than $10,000, it will be signed by the agency. And if it's greater than $10,000 following our small purchase process, at the bid, it will be signed by the SPO. Okay. Our other small business document is the small purchase with sole source conditions. That up. Now, this is a fairly new form. I know we went over it a few months ago when it was new, but it's always good to kind of walk back through it really quickly. Really, these are all the questions that an SPO or an APO would be asking anyway. So it kind of goes along with that same idea that we just want to provide some consistency across agencies. There's not a lot to this form, and it's not the same as, of course, if you're doing a sole source above the small purchase threshold, you would have have to schedule a hearing and the sole source justification form part 1 and then the part 2, which is signed by the CPO. Now that's different than a small purchase with sole source conditions. So in this instance, you're looking at something that's less than the $100,000 threshold and can only be sourced with one single vendor. So it has some questions, short description, the vendor, estimated value, and we pulled some of the questions from the sole source form, but it's just not all of them. So this is really some of the questions that an SPO or an APO would be asking anyway. So we're just providing that in a fillable PDF for you. Okay, and maybe next week we'll circle back and actually walk through that process in BidBuy. That's what we were going to do last week, but with the new change order notice form, I thought it would be appropriate to do the change order for our BidBuy activity this week. Okay, let's go back to our slides. All right, we get to our fun fact. So, like I said, this was actually from last week, but I liked it so much, and I'm such a huge Beatles fan that I would love to be a fly on the wall. April 21st, 1963. The Beatles and the Rolling Stones met for the first time at the Crawdaddy Club in Richmond, England. The Rolling Stones opened the show. So, for a lot of you folks, you're either a Beatles person or a Rolling Stones person. It's almost like the Cubs Cardinals kind of thing. I am firmly in Beatles camp for those of you who might wonder, but I just really, really liked that one. And I was very disappointed I didn't get to do that fun fact last week. All right, so let's go out and do our BidBuy activity contract change order. So really what I'm going to do, I'm going to use my handy dandy job aid. Where is it? It's up here. Really all I'm going to do is walk through this, but doing it in BidBuy. So you could pull it up and walk along with me if you'd like. The contract change order, this is on the, we want to talk about the difference between an amendment, which is less than $10,000, less than 30 days. A contract change order is a change order or series of change orders which authorize or necessitate an increase or decrease in either the cost of a public contract by a total of $10,000 or more at the time of completion by a total of 30 days or more. So for more information on change orders, please refer to the CPO memo linked here. So there's a link there that kind of provides some extra information about the process. So there's also a note here. In the case of a material change that the SPO does not appear on the approval path, such as a change in time, the SPO should be manually added to the approval path. And we're going to walk through that, but I thought that was really important because the approval paths BidBuy are not automatically set up by time. They're set up by NIGP code as well as dollar amount. So if you're adding, maybe the dollar isn't changing, but you're adding the contract date out by 40 days, you're going to have to manually add the SPO there because you still need SPO approval for that procurement action. However, it's not going to automatically do that. So, and there's another note later on in the process as well, but I just wanted to highlight that just in case you get to that point and you go, wait, this isn't, the SPO isn't on this approval path. That's absolutely the way it's going to be set up, and you're going to have to manually add them. Okay, so let's go in, and I'm going to go into train environment. BidBuy train. John, that's pretty funny. What? No moves like Jagger? Nope. I got moves like Paul McCartney, John. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to, it's going to walk through a requisition because it still needs that approval at the rec, a new bid for publicly posting because that's the important piece of it needs to be publicly posted that this public contract is being changed. And then we're going to go back to the original PO and do a change order on that PO just to update all the, update all the fields as well as put in that documentation for that change order for the final procurement file. So what we're going to do is we are going to create requisition. In our short description, let me get this box out of the way. We need to put change order notice, and then add your additional text as needed. So I had previously done a PO for procurement in a previous training, and I bought some saxophones. So we're gonna go under the situation of we just didn't buy enough saxophones. We need to buy one more. So put that there. The type code requisition type is open market. It's going to open up our type code, put in our type code. This one will be equipment. We're going to link to that original contract by going to selecting our magnifying glass here. It's going to bring a pop-up. I can do a document type. I need to go find that purchase order because I want to link this to it. So anybody who's going to be approving this change order can immediately link to the original PO. So if I have the PO, I can do that, or I can do the description. Let's try that because I think that was the name of it. Yep, this one right here. So we're linking to that purchase order. Then I hit select. Now you can see I have a link here. And then if this was a joint purchase or a joint purchase master contract, I'd add that into the change order in the short description. So we'll hit save and continue, and we will go to our items tab. So in the items tab, we're going to add an open market item. In the description, we're just going to be putting in a brief explanation of the change order. So we underestimated how many saxes we needed to start our CPO GS band. Okay, so in the quantity, we're going to be putting in the value of the change. So in this case, we're going to say, you know what, I think we bought 6 or 7 as a part of that band or as a part of that original procurement. We need 2 more. And what that cost is going to be, this would be over $10,000. We're going to say it's $7,000 each for a total extended amount of $14,000 for this change order. Add the NIGP codes. 580, I just happen to know what that is. So you use the same NIGP code that you used for your original procurement. I'm not sure exactly. We'll go with Orchestra Instruments. Okay, save and exit. The vendors are going to be added at that bid stage, so very similar to all our other procurements. The address, you shouldn't need to change any of your address information, but you could if you needed to. Accounting is going to be done the same way, right? We're going to search for magnifying glass. We're going to click either the N for not applicable because I know that's what I'm going to do, or select find it and it'll bring up all our options. We're going to select not applicable, select. Then we say based on percentages and rebuild for all items. Just a quick reminder, the reason why we do the accounting tab is so it will route through the appropriate approval paths. Okay, so now my accounting error is done. Attachments. This is where I'm going to go in and attach my change order justification form, any agency specific documents as well. Go out and let me just grab something that's here. So this is our change order justification form. Oh, it says it has a special character in it. I didn't see a special character. Let's try this one. Something that doesn't have there we go. So you have your change order justification form there. That doesn't need to be showed to the vendor. You could add any of your agency specific forms, any communications for the procurement file there. Okay, then we will notes and reminders if you need to, and then you're going to go ahead and submit for approval. So at this point, you're going to actually see an approval path, right? Because we're in the training environment, you're not going to. But we do have a note in our change order job aid in that if the change order increases the overall cost from under, and this is a very specific situation, but it potentially could happen. If the change order increases the overall cost from under $249,999 on the original procurement to over that 250 after the change order, then GOMBI should be manually added to the approval path. Of course, any procurement $250,000 or above needs to be approved by GOMBI, so they would have to approve that change order once it goes above that 250. But for our case here, automatic approval, like I said, that's going to be a very specific situation, but you know what? It is bound to happen at some point. Okay, so now we're into the ready for purchasing. We're going to convert this to bid. Are we sure we want to convert to bid? Yes, we are. And now we're going to be doing a bid in order to post this notice to the public. Okay, we have our new bid over here. We have a bid that is now in progress, and we will walk through this, what we need to add at the bid in order to be able to publicly post it. So that description, you shouldn't need to change it, but just in case, we need to have that change order notice as a part of that title at the very beginning. The type code will be amendment, change order. So it's either going to be 55, which is amendment, change order, increase, or no dollar, or you could have a change order that's actually a decrease. So you have two options there. In this case, we are increasing it. We are going to bid available is going to be today or now. We are going to uncheck allow electronic response, right? Because this is just a public notice. We're not receiving any quotes. The bid opening date needs to be out at least 14 days. So allow for to make the approval paths and be out there for 14 days. See what else, nothing we need to do there. We need to enable rolling enrollment because we want to be able to go in and open this up and do the bid tab information immediately. The bulletin description is just an opportunity to be able to say, we're going to explain what the change order is. We added more axes to our CPO-GS band. Of course, you probably have a little bit more information there. Your SPO. Is this a small business set-aside procurement? If it was, you just select the appropriate one. If it was a set-aside and you're doing a change order on a set-aside, that answer would be yes. Is there a BEP, VBP participation goal? Answer appropriately if there was or not. And then you would put, if there was, you'd put in the proper percentages. You have the link to this original contract there. If that wasn't done at the rec, you could do that again here at this stage. The original bid number here, you could put in the, that PO number 13619. 13619. And then see the items tab, you don't have to do anything. Address, accounting's already been done. We go to the attachments. And this is where we're going to put in the change order notice, which is the brand new form that we just had. Add file, choose file, go in and grab what our change order notice form would be. Now this is a document that we absolutely needs to be shown to the vendor, right? Because that needs to be out there. IOC offset, disclosures if the change order is over $250,000 in communications for the procurement file. So just follow your attachments tab in your job aid. Notes, you could add notes if you needed to. Bidders, you're going to be utilizing that NIGP code and look up and add vendors the way we normally would. Look up and add my vendors using, what was that, 580. We did for instruments. Okay, find it. You select all. Scroll down, hit save and exit. Now we're going to have all our bidders. It's going to be unrestricted. Not that it matters at this point because we're not allowing responses, but we want to make it very clear to everybody that this is just a change order notice. Ensure that hide bid holder list on the vendor side, for some reason in the training environment, it doesn't have that checked, but in the production, it always does. Save and continue, and then you will go in and submit for approval in the summary tab. Okay, we're not utilizing questions, amendments, Q&A, reminders. You could use the reminders if you want. If you want to have somebody else go in and take a look at it, you could utilize the reminders tab. Then you get to the summary tab, review any of your documents, review everything that you have, and submit for approval. I submit for approval. Now this is the case where the SPO may not be on there. So this might be an instance where you need to manually add an approver. And so if you need to manually add, all you do is select this drop down. I'm going to go in and select myself. I'm the SPO, add approver, and now you'll be able to see them. And then you click save and continue. Okay, because once again, this has to be it would only really be for a time extension, right? So you're not adding dollars, but you're just adding days. That's when you'll need to manually add your SPO. Otherwise, your SPO should be on there anyway because you did the accounting properly. And in our items tab, it's greater than $10,000. So it's going to automatically hit your SPO. Okay, so we're going to say that was ready for approval. I can go in as the SPO. I'm approving now as the SPO. I approve that. I can then go into ready to send and send this bid. Once again, that's going to be the SPO function to go in and send this notice out. So I will send the bid. I get a confirmation that it was sent to all of these vendors. That's been publicly posted now. So now we need to go into and do the bid tab where we're going to, since we did the rolling or the enable rolling enrollment, we're allowed to open the bid immediately. Go down to the bid tab and create a new quote for this change order. Okay, so we're creating a new quote for what vendor it is. It was Kidder Music. Receive date. So I'm just kind of walking through the quote documentation here. Within the items, what is that change, right? So we have to put in that unit cost from the vendor side. So that was, we said $7,000. Save and continue. Terms and conditions, I have to select yes. Save and continue. Part of the attachments, I guess you could put in any sort of, any documents that you had having to do with that. You might have already had that attached anyway, but if you needed to, you could go in and attach, a specific quote on how much it would be to add a couple more saxophones. You could add that there. Summary tab and submit that quote. Are you sure you want to submit the quote? Yes, I am. And now when we go back to the bid and back to the bid tab, you'll see that we have our quote. We're going to go in and click award, bid tab. So within our bid tab, within our items tab of the bid tab, you guys all know this, we're going to award this $14,000 change order. We award all. Are you sure? Yes. And then we can hit the summary tab and submit this award for approval. Okay, so in this case, they would be on the approval path, but for our training environment, we'll automatically approve. And once that's done, you're done with this bid and this change order. Normally, you would create a PO from this page, right? But we're not going to do that. We're going to go back to the original PO, and we need to do, add the amendment and the change order documentation to that original PO. So we won't be creating a PO. So there's a big, on the job aid, it says stop here, do not convert to PO. You're going to navigate back to the original PO, which is this 13619. So the original PO, you're going to create a change order to put in the vendor signed amendment document, the change order notice form on this original PO. Okay, so we go change orders, create change order. We are now going to go into, change anything that would have, if we needed to change anything on the general tab, we could. So this would be something if it was, if you're changing the actual end date, in this case, we're not because we're just adding the items. But let's say you're extending out a contract by, 40 days, which is just that time extension example. You would go in and change the actual contract end date here. That's not the case for what we're doing today. We are changing the full SAP contract value by $14,000, right? So the items tab will make any changes, right? Because there used to be, there were 7 here. We need to go into the item and change it. So now we actually have, there was 9. Oh, I missed my unit cost. I had it earlier as $15,000. So that's my fault. I put in $7,000. I should have gone back and used the same exact cost of what was changing there. So now when you look at this PO, once we've done this change order, you're going to see the proper quantities and the proper amounts will be there. Attachments, this is where we go in and attach the vendor signed amendment document, as well as the change order notice form. Find something that doesn't have. This is the, vendor signed. Vendor signed amendment. And we also have the change order notice form that was also attached to the other one that was publicly posted. But since this is the procurement file of record, we need to have it in here as well. Okay, and then the summary. So you do a comment for the whole change order, which is a brief explanation of the change order. Ensure to note that the bid number, ensure to note the bid number of this change order notice field descriptions, update and revise to fully explain the change. So, and then you're going to submit for approval. So, in the case of a material change that the SPO does not appear in the approval path, such as a change in time, the SPO should be manually added to the approval path. So very similar to when we were doing the change order notice on that other bid to publicly post the change order. If it was only time, you'd have to manually add them. That's not the case here because we are adding dollars, the $14,000 too. So you put in your comment there for the change order, and then you submit for approval. Once again, if you needed to manually add them because it was only time, you could manually add them. Otherwise, they'd be on the approval path. In this case, we'll automatically approve. It's going to route through the approval paths. And once you get the notification that the change order has been approved, you can go into the change order and apply that change order. Go in and apply the change order. So remember, the system doesn't change anything technically until you actually apply the change order. That's that final piece. And then you're done. So then that you've done that, it got the approval to execute. So then you fully get that the agency to sign the amendment document, the fully executed change order, and then you go back in and attach it via the change order the same way you would when you do your fully executed contract. Okay, do we have any questions? Looks like we have a question. Sorry, I missed it a little while ago. So if you have a contract that has been ongoing, but you would like to extend it 60 days, you could use this change order to extend it. Assume you have enough money for the extra 60 days. Yes. Now, I will say that it's, sometimes it's not a matter of if you just would like to extend it 60 days, because once again, it has to, fall under the definition of a change order, which is the, you know, it was germane to the original contract, and the change was not foreseen at the beginning of the contract. So, you know, that's really a question for your SPO, because the SPO might disagree and say, well, look, no, really, this really should be a new procurement action. Most of the time where we see this is you're at the end of a project and you're not going to have time to get something else in place, or you almost make it through the end of the project, but you still have some work that needs to be done, but you ran out of the time at the end of the contract date or money, but you really need it to finish the project. That's mostly where I see these happen, but that's really going to have to be a specific question for your SPO. All right, guys, any other questions? I know this Tuesday was a little bit longer than most, but I really wanted to go through that change order process and actually have a recording of it as well, so you guys can go back and take a look at it. Please let me know if you have any questions. This video will be posted just like we normally do, and I'll send out the slides as well. All right, everybody, have a fantastic rest of your week, and thanks for joining us.